Good morning. I myself, B. Prasad, PhD in English here from KB Danapur, Kent, first shift. Dear children, today I am going to teach you about Albert Einstein at a school. This chapter is prescribed for class 11th. Albert Einstein at a school has been written by Patrick Pringle, one of the outstanding writers in English literature. Let us know about the author. Patrick Pringle full name is Lawrence Patrick Pringle. The author was born on 26th November 1935 in Rochester. Patrick Pringle was also a prolific writer, and he showed his keen interest in great personality of the world along with Albert Einstein. That is why he took this topic for his writing. He became the professor of emeritus of Earth Science at Centralia College, Washington, and he very beautifully wrote the biography of Albert Einstein. Patrick Pringle died in 1977 in New York. Let us know about his some popular books by author. Patrick Pringle also wrote some popular books from his pen, and his main books were also Highwaymen, that was published in 1963. His other books were A Stand and Deliver, that published in 1957. He also wrote Hue and Cry, The Birth of the British in 1955, Jolly Roger in 1953. Highwaymen also got great popularity, as we see that A Stand and Deliver also became very popular among the readers. Again, we'll know about Albert Einstein, as the author has also described very well about him, about his birth, his study, his special contribution to the society, contribution to mathematics and science, his higher education, his education at matriculation level. Albert Einstein was born on 14th March 1829 at Ulm, Germany. He died on 18 April 1955. He wrote some books and propounded the most relevant theory in physics, the theory of relativity. He got education at University of Zurich. Before it, he also got education at matriculation level in slum area, and his teacher was Mr. Braun and Mr. Koch. Einstein is generally considered the most influential physicist of the 20th century. Let us see Albert Einstein at a school among his friends. How nice picture here it is. Einstein was sitting among his friends in well dressed, systematically they are sitting, and this shows that from inside Albert Einstein was also an outstanding student since his childhood. He shows his sincerity in studies, but his father economic conditions was so miserable that he was bound to stay in slum area as a renter. Later on we should connect with the main character. If we like to go in deep about the chapter and the different characters concerned to this chapter, the first character is Albert Einstein, and Al- regarding Albert Einstein we can say that he was resolved to his study, especially in science and mathematics. He was less interested in history and other subjects. The second character is Mr. Brown, who is the class teacher of Albert. His main subject was history. In fact, Mr. Brown was also adamant by his attitude, and he forced Albert Einstein to learn dates of historical war instead of facts. The third important character in this chapter is Elja. Elja is none other than the cousin sister of Albert Einstein. She was blended with positive attitude, optimistic and supportive behavior. She proved just like a godfather from economic point of view, as her father was also a businessman in Milan. Now, dear students, let you see a very beautiful, attractive personality Albert Einstein he was, and besides him, his elder sister Elja was also here. Both are also well dressed in, and they are also discussing something about their perspectives and future. This indirectly shows that how much they are very much close together, and they had made the plan for their future progress. In connection to the main characters, I am going to continue other ones. Without them, it would be unjust to complete the story. And he is Mr. Coach, Honorable Mr. Coach, the teacher of mathematics. He was very much dedicated to his job. He always motivated Albert Einstein whenever he was feeling embarrassed by his history teacher, Mr. Brown. He came forward. Mr. Coach came forward for him, consoled him, and inspired him to strive for the better in his life. He also issued him the appreciation certificate for mathematics. The story can't be completed without the discussion of two other personalities. One is Yuri and another is Dr. Ernst. Yuri was also Albert's best friend. He was senior to him, and Above all, he was his well-wisher. And at last, Dr. Ernst Weil, who was the senior student of medical science, he was the student of final year in medical science. He also issued Albert the certificate of nervous breakdown, which became very useful to leave the school and save his prestige. Now, a student, let us throw your sight on this photograph. See how handsome Mr. Koch and his disciple, his student Albert Einstein are looking here. Perhaps both are also discussing some subject matter, especially in mathematics. Albert Einstein was very much curious. He asked question from Mr. Koch, and Mr. Koch is also in deep thinking to sort out the problem and clarify the doubts very clearly to his beloved student, who is of course brilliant, and he thought his student would surely excel in mathematics. After that, we have to come on the theme of the story. Without it, it would not be proper to proceed forward. The theme of the story tells us Albert Einstein at a school, his behavior, his experience, his realizations with with his classmates and his teachers. This story throws light on the modern way of providing education. And dear student, education doesn't mean learning dates, it means understanding the facts. This is the main objective. This is the pinpoint of this story, which is included in the theme. After that, we should also focus on plot construction in the story. Plot construction is essential part, and without dealing with it, we cannot complete the motto of the story. Whatever I want to say and you want to listen and experience. So here the first point is pertaining to Albert, who is very simple, but by mind he is logical, by behavior he is dedicated to a study, and he had to cross over the hurdles of economic scarcity as he was facing due to his father's income, along with the anger of his class teacher. What is the anger? The anger Mr. Brown always liked to impose his principle upon Albert's thinking. The second point here in plot construction is Mr. Brown's adamant and harassing attitude. He was the teacher of history, but he was very much adamant, and he keeps harassing attitude that embarrassed Albert very much. The third point in plot construction is quite clear contrast and complex between Albert and Mr. Brown thinking. The next point is here very important, note down in your mind: delicacies of relationship with Elsa and adequate academic guidelines got from Mr. Koch. It is Mr. Kunz who proved just like a torch in the life of Albert Einstein and supported everywhere, where, whatever he could. Mr. Kunz motivated Albert, issued him appreciation certificate for mathematics that became that proved fruitful at the time of getting admission at Milan University. And the last point is here to be noted: the complaint against Albert to the principal by Mr. Braun proved a big hurdle for his expulsion from the school. This is the plot construction which will assimilate entire incident of the story. Now we have to also focus on setting of the story. It is essential, vital to know what is the setting of the story to understand better, and later on you can explain the requirements of the questions through your answers. So here the first point is classroom setting. In classroom setting we find that interaction between Albert and Mr. Braun regarding education. The discussion is going on, interaction. The second point in setting up the story is slum accommodation. As we all know, and you know also, that Albert's father's economic condition is not good. He was a farmer. So due to that, he had to stay in the slum area as a renter. That was quite noisy place, and there uncivilized dwellers are living. For Albert, only one comfort was there: the interest of music, and sometimes when he was intense, he used to play violin. The third point is here in the setting of the story, my dear student: mental support provided by Elja and Yuri. Albert got too much supports from Elja and Yuri whenever he was also getting himself perplexed due to the economic drudgery and the scolding of Mr. Braun. The next point here in setting up the story is doctor's chamber, where Albert went to meet doctor and asked for nervous breakdown certificate so that he could be able to leave the school, because he was feeling so too much suffocated there, as he was badly embarrassed. Afterward, Mr. Coach, who always motivates Albert to think high, to do well, to excel in, and when the situation became out of control, he proved himself as a good guide as well as a guardian, and that is why he issued him the appreciation certificate for mathematics, which became complete useful to get admission in Milan. In the setting of the story, we also relates headmaster's chamber that points out the reason for his expulsion from the school, and at last there is also a farewell, that the simplest farewell by his near and dear, and who is none other than but his senior Yuri. That was the last meeting with him, and what he quoted, a very important words he quoted: let us hear. You are going to a wonderful country. I think, I think, I hope you will be happier there. Now we also visualize and listen value points. Value points are very much important to develop the story, its theme, and its consequences. Here we find the chapter opens in the history class where his history teacher also takes Mr. Brown is taking the class. He asking the question related to the dates of war, and in this context Einstein is frank. He gives the reply very frankly that date, learning the date doesn't matter. The conversation between Einstein and his history teacher, Mr. Brown, turns unpleasant when the teacher talks in a sarcastic manner about Einstein's theory of education. The teacher calls him a disgrace and punishes him. In continuation to the value points, let us see, my dear student, due to the disgracing behavior of Mr. Brown, he was very sad. He felt disappointed and desperate. There are many factors of being miserable: the school environment, the place where he was living, that is the slum area, the atmosphere where he lives is also depressing. He hates the atmosphere of slum violence because generally we find wherever the slum area is situated, the people are mostly illiterate, uneducated, and sometimes they are taking liquors. The children are roaming here and there on the garbage dump. They, there is no one there to provide them proper guideline and education. They are far away, they are deprived of education, and even their husband who are working in the different factories and mines, they used to come back in the evening after heavy drink and be misbehave with the family members. Sometimes they abuse. Einstein discusses about all this with his friend Yuri, who lives in his shared room. While Yuri says that his room was no better than Einstein, he consoled him. He encourages him that you are better than your room. Your thought is high. You can be better in coming future. Don't mind it and forget all the situations. But it is the environment, homely environment where anyone is living. It affects our mind anytime. It is obvious for everyone. And sometimes the violent situation hammers his brain. But Yuri suggested him that he should not mind it. Einstein discusses about the problems at a school with his cousin sister Elja, as she was occasionally visited him, and she hears it very carefully and tries her best to advise him how to sort out the problem. She also assures Albert that in this context, whatever it would be possible, she would render her hand to provide him her support in positive aspect. Elja thinks there is no reason that he cannot pass by remembering facts even though he does not understand them. Einstein has fond of reading books, especially science. Therefore, Elja points out to him that reading those books will not help him to pass his examination. You have to study the subject matter, whatever it is prescribed in your syllabus. It is, of course, definitely a proper and good guidelines given by Elja to Einstein. So Einstein discusses with Yuri about getting a medical certificate as he was feeling bored, suffocated, and the environment at a school from the side of his adamant teacher, Mr. Braun, who was always embarrassing him to learn the date, while Albert has had the clear concept that learning the facts and the results of war is essential rather than learning the dates. His logic was 100% correct. He Albert was also in dilemma what to do or not. So, as per the suggestions given by his friend Yuri, he became ready to meet the qualified doctor, the doctor of the medical science final year, Ernst Weil, and who listened his problem very carefully and patiently, and he assured Albert Einstein to issue a special medical certificate entitled nervous breakdown certificate. And this nervous breakdown certificate will surely help him to leave the school, and there would be no needle of a doubt raised against him by Albert's father. In continuation to the value points, my dear student, you should also know what his best friend Yuri suggested Einstein to meet his mathematics teacher, because his cousin sister obviously and clearly told him that he would not be able to get admission until he would get the certificate of appreciation in mathematics. So Yuri suggested him to consult mathematics teachers Albert Einstein to have this certificate. Albert Einstein met his mathematics teacher Mr. Koch, and Mr. Koch always appreciates his brilliance. He didn't hesitate to issue him a certificate. He also gave a glowing reference to Einstein which can get him admission in college in Milan. Einstein is called by the head teacher, who informs him that he is being expelled from the school. The head teacher tells him of his misbehavior in class with Mr. Braun. This shows that Master Einstein was also indisciplined, courteousness, didn't know the ethics, what he should maintain, and the headmaster of the school blamed him that you are not suitable student to stay in the school, so you can be expelled from the school. But My dear student, when we justify the reason through the logic given by Einstein, it is right that Einstein was in fact correct and right on his stand. Facts and reality is necessary instead of learning the dates of war. Reason and results are essential. So before leaving for Milan, he meets his best friend Yuri, who wishes him good luck for the future. In this way, the value points of this story is over, and there Albert Einstein got admission in university, and gradually he crossed all the hurdles of life, paid full attention to his study with sincerity and devotion. His dedication brought a miraculous changes and good output, and this personal this student later on became the greatest personality of science and propounded the theory of relativity in the field of physics and got Nobel Prize in 1921 for the principle, the theory of relativity. After the value points, let us see the difficult word meaning while reading. The difficult word meanings are expulsion, expulsion, means forced or compelled, forced, forced to or compelled to remove or removal, unthinking or spontaneous, amaze, astonish or surprise, heavy sarcasm, mockery, blushed, became red in confusion, abstain means remain, lodging, place of residence, squalor means dirt or filth, slum violence, fight in the poorest areas of the town where the poor people used to dwell in or reside, came drunk, taking liquor to be drunk, civilized means humble, polite, well mannered, duel, fight between two people, a scar, cut mark or injury mark, badges of honor, mark of respect, mark of pride, glumly, sadly, miserable means pitiable, disgrace, insult, squalor, dirt, summoned, SUMMONED means called. Activities to be undertaken. Here, activity to be undertaken is, my dear student, group discussion. And group discussion is essential after reading the story. That helps to clarify all the doubts, whatever it comes in your mind. And in group discussion, you have to discuss India needs a change in the present education policy. You can discuss or also put it as the topic of debate, whether the old education policy of the world was appropriate, adequate, or now the new education policy that is propounded by the different governments of the world, along with the India, as recently Modi government has also propounded. We should also compare it and come to the conclusion in discussion or debate that the present education policy is apt, whatever the changes had brought, it is also just for the education system or not. After completion of the story, my dear student, you need the assignment for practice. It is essential part of the study, and It should be done in your answer sheet. The first question is, why was Mr. Brown speechless for a few moments? The second question is, what is Einstein's views on education? Here, Einstein's views must be discussed, described by you, and the views must be compared with Mr. Brown. The third question, why did Albert see no point in learning date and facts? It is, of course, crystal clear that Albert had a logic, a philosophy in his mind. He had also the maturity and sincerity in his mind that dates are not so important rather than the facts that directly or indirectly relates to the causes and results of the war. Question number 4. How did Yuri help Albert in his crucial hour? Dear student, you should know it is the best friend who can prove himself or herself better for his or her friend. The same was happened with Albert and support given by Yuri, and it is also described in the story. Question number 5. Who was Dr. Ernstwell? It is well known that Dr. Ernstwell was also a senior most and final year student of medical science. How did he help? It is already discussed in the value points. Assignment practice number 2. It is also vital for you to be done in your answer sheet. The first question is, what factors made Albert Einstein's life in Munich miserable? You have to discuss and illustrate the previous life of a school environment as well as the room where he was living in the slum area. Question number 2. The school system often curbs individual talents. Wherever the bad environment is available in the school, it can curb. But where the good environment in the school is available, it can change the individual talents, and the student also become bright and be able to make name and fame of the school as well as the country. Question number 3. How do you distinguish between information gathering and insight information? This is also value added question. You have to also write it in the proper way. Question number 4. Describe the events leading to Albert expulsion from his school. What are the causes? What are the reasons? And whether these reasons are apt. These reasons are also verified by the headmaster of the school. Whatever the complaint put by the history teacher, everything should be mentioned clearly. Question number 5. What do you gather about the characters of Albert as a school pupil? You have to give the character sketch of Albert Einstein, which is completely discussed in this chapter by me. Thank you for viewing and listening these clippings. Thanks a lot for your patience to listen and view.